Some sports news now, and the World Cup kickoff is just one day away, but concern is mounting over just how much the U.S. hardline crackdown on immigrants will affect fans and players from numerous countries taking part. Well, we're going to talk about this now with Simon Chadwick, a specialist in the geopolitics of sports. Simon, thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Let's start first with this story of this World Cup referee from Somalia who was going to be his country's first ever referee at a World Cup game, but was refused entry. What happened, and was it justified?
So the referee attempted to gain entry to the United States through Miami Airport. He was obviously accredited by FIFA, Africa's top referee, seemed to have diplomatic clearance to go through Miami, but was then turned away. And I guess the context to this is that historically Donald Trump has made some pretty derogatory comments about Somalia and about one Somali Democratic senator as well. And so it appears as though this is, one would imagine, more politically oriented or motivated than it was by sporting decisions. What we do know is FIFA has said it's not for it to decide who enters countries, it's for the host nation. And so this is one of the reasons why FIFA has not been able to do anything.
Right. And in another political decision, some might say, Iran playing in the World Cup as well, but its football federation now says that its ticket allocation for the games has been revoked, which means that people who bought tickets in the draw last year won't get them.
True. It's unclear what's happening on that, I think, at the moment and why the revocation has taken place. But of course, given the war this year and longer term relations between the United States and Iran, I think this was inevitable that such an episode was going to happen. Of course, what we've already seen is Iran's training camp. Its World Cup training camp has been moved from the United States to Mexico. But even so, it's looking like when Iran has to travel into the United States on match days, there may be further problems because it appears that other Iranian officials have already been barred from the United States.
You know, despite all the fervor surrounding the World Cup, it does seem like the U.S. president is not the most welcoming to those who want to come attend. Do you think that a lot of foreign football fans will stay away?
It's a difficult one for foreign football fans because, of course, it's very expensive to get there. There are issues around ticket prices. Of course, there's some unpredictability around flights and the price of flight tickets. But as we saw last summer during the FIFA Club World Cup, which was also held in the United States, there was the presence of ICE agents. And I think it's safe to say that certain fans from certain countries are genuinely concerned about what might happen to them. Even if they legally gain access to the United States, might they be apprehended by ICE agents, questioned by them? And so I think for many fans around the world, there is a real reticence around going to America for the tournament this summer.
It certainly seems like there are a lot of challenges this time around. Do you think there was more that FIFA could have done or should have done to avert all of this?
I think that FIFA President Gianni Infantino was well aware of the potential for negative or adverse consequences following Donald Trump's re-election in 2024. And my personal view is that the peace awards that Infantino gave to Donald Trump was part of a risk mitigation strategy intended basically to smooth the waters and ensure that there weren't too many disruptions. But of course, Donald Trump is a very unpredictable character, but also we live in a very unpredictable world. And so a lot of what has been happening, I think, has been fairly inevitable. And one would hope, as the world governing body of football, that FIFA has Plan B in place for other matters that will arise. But I think in some ways, FIFA possibly could never have really envisaged just how complicated and how sensitive this tournament would be.
And there is a lot of focus, of course, on the situation in the U.S., but the kickoff game, the kickoff ceremony is being held in Mexico tomorrow, where there's been trouble as well with protests. How much do you think that's going to cause a problem tomorrow for the opening ceremony?
So from what I'm hearing from the people I've spoken to in Mexico is there is the possibility of civil unrest. People are questioning why huge amounts of money is being spent on the World Cup when healthcare provision, education and so forth are underfunded in Mexico at the moment. But again, Mexico is a really interesting host in the sense that there's been widespread political and drug violence. Many journalists have been killed in recent years. Of course, earlier this year, we saw major cartel violence in certain parts of Mexico. So I think Mexico was always going to be a risky choice, and security was going to be high. But I think given the civil unrest, we may well see the security situation ramping up another notch again.
Right. And Simon, it is going to be interesting to see how all of this develops on the political civil unrest level, as you say. But the World Cup, after all, is indeed about football, about sport. I know it's hard to say, but just before you go, who do you think is going to go all the way this year?
As an English guy, am I allowed to say this? But my adopted home, France, I think. If France can actually stick together and not fall out with one another, I think they've got to be favourites.
Yeah, Simon, I think a lot of France 24 viewers will agree with you. We're all rooting for France over here. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us. That's Simon Chadwick. Thanks so much.
Thank you.